Tina
Norwegian last name.
Kilhog. I had her as a student, and I always made a point of never saying her last name. And Casey Hayden will be handing things out. And so I will let them take over and talk about USD.
Okay, so I think
Is there anything I want to,
What?
is there anything on this that I need to go through?
No, just your photos, so if you want to like.
Oh, you want me to do that all now? Or
No,
just
maybe just do your introduction.
I'm getting instructions, as you can't tell on. I'm apparently first. So it's great to be here. It's great to have the opportunity to talk about our office, which is still pretty new. So we were formed at the end of July. Historically, University of South Dakota, as many of you know, has had international students and has supported them in a number of ways, but that has always happened. Well, actually, the services to students has moved across campuses and reported to various individuals over the years. I think I counted 8 different people who have done international student services since about 2002. Then so in the 2015, 2016, the university decided to actually start recruiting international students. So prior to that time, the students that arrived on our campus found us organically. Through searches, through information that they had, a relationship that they might have had, through something that one of the faculty had done, however it was, they just found us. But that year we began to do some research on how can we go out and recruit students and make more people aware of all the great things that are happening on our campus and make them want to come to us. So we did a little bit of that and did a lot of learning in last school year. And then this summer, the university decided there were a couple of people who left campus, and that was a ripe opportunity for some reorganization. So we took the international student services, the admissions piece, the intensive English program, and the recruiting piece, and put us all under one umbrella, one office. So we were very creative with our name. We are the International Office. You can give it, but it seems to work. And a fantastic staff of people. So one of the things we're really lucky about is that we had people in different offices across campus who had experience. So that part has been a ton of fun. I was actually the one who came in with the biggest learning curve. I think we're kind of hitting our stride to begin, getting some things done. And it just, to me, and I hope a lot of other people agree, it feels like this really was the right decision. I think that the timing was perfect. We as an office really, it's so much easier. You can get things done way more efficiently when you're all in the same place rather than having to go through others and it's the timing right and, think about all those other kinds of issues when you're not located in the same place. So basically, in terms of recruiting, which is what a lot of people are really kind of interested in, is obviously because it's new to USD's campus. What are we doing? How are we making those decisions? So I would say that there's 3 things that are motivating us as we choose where to recruit. And, sort of the obvious one is volume. So yes, we are looking at research reports and, where are the students who have the interest, the motivation. There's already a pipeline of people who are coming to the United States to study, where there's still potential, more room, for another player to get into that market. We also want to make, I would say, we want to make this right for USD. So we aren't going to have 1 or 2 singular focuses where the opportunity is exactly right, where we might actually be able to get a bunch of students. And if we put all of our focus into, let's say, the obvious ones would be China and India because of the numbers and the volume, that to me wouldn't be right for USD. We wouldn't internationalize our campus if we just had our international students from 2 places, even though those are huge continents, and there's obviously a lot of diversity on not continents, but countries. So We are focusing to some degree on demand and the access to students and things, but we also are doing some little things. So you'll hear in a little bit, some of the trips that we're taking are to places that you might not expect. So again, we know there's growth there. We know there's real interest and a lot of potential, but the numbers are smaller. So, even if we hit that growth, it still is going to result in a smaller overall number than we might from some other places. And in making those kinds of choices, we kind of are looking at who are we here on the Northern Great Plains and who's been here historically and how does that kind of fit with things we're doing. So that's our rationale. That's who we are. And Patrick, you going to talk next? Okay.
Turkey was maybe the audience, if you could stand up and run around to get a system, please do. So.
Yeah, you didn't give me that opportunity. Here I am just trying to stand up. So my name is Tina Chellog. I am the Assistant Director for International Recruitment, which basically means that I work with applicants through the application process. Right now, I've been working mostly with graduate applicants, but during my time at USD, my position has changed significantly. So I've been here for about 3.5 years. And when I first started, my position was located in CDE, and I was in charge of undergraduate prospective students as well as applicants, graduate prospective students as well as applicants, and the intensive English program prospective students as well as applicants. Fortunately, we grew a little bit, and my position was divided into 3. So now we have 3 people. But it's been a very interesting ride to kind of see the changes in the type of work that you do on a daily basis, a switch from working with students that predominantly know about USD because they have friends or family that come here to kind of feeling like you're breaking new ground, I guess, to a certain degree. So, yeah, my role is kind of from the time that they initially hear about USD until I get to hand them over to Patrick's side of the office, and then they arrive on campus. But it's a really rewarding opportunity. I always talk about getting a map and putting it up on the wall and saying, look at all of the different applicants that I've worked with, or look at all of the different students that I have had the good fortune of providing them with the opportunity to come and study in a place that's welcoming and friendly, and I'm very grateful to have this opportunity.
So most of you probably know me, so I'm Patrick Morrison, I'm a Rotarian here, and Tim, I've already been texting Elmira, and she has eyes on that $500, so if you just want to set it aside. So I'm the Assistant Director for International Student Services, so essentially after the student is admitted and done a few other things, the file, kind of the ceremony, is handed over to myself, and Casey Hayden is the International Student Advisor, and we both work in the student services end of things. So kind of how we start off, we issue the immigration document, guide students through the visa process, which is always fun and might be getting more fun over the next few years. And then we assist on the arrival into USD. We do a orientation, and then we assist them essentially during their time here, mainly on compliance things. So their student visa, there's requirements that the federal government put on them. So we help students through that. And then just adjustment to USD if they have any questions navigating USD bureaucracy, I guess, anything from issues with their roommate in the dorms to, faculty and all those sorts of things. So it's sort of a never know what I'm going to get when I come into the office. Just some numbers for you as well, we have currently 245 students, international students. Most of those the vast majority of them are full degree seeking students. So they're here for bachelor's, master's, PhD. But we also have about 10 students at any given time that are here for a semester or a year. So, and then that's kind of where we're at. So I think the next portion, maybe the more interesting part, because we have photos, so that's great, is we'll talk about our travels, just some trips that we're doing, and just kind of give you an idea of where we're going, and then we'll have hopefully plenty of time for questions. So if you have any questions about anything to do with international student support or where the students are coming from, what programs they're looking at, that sort of thing, we can do that. So I think Susan's photos are up first. Yes.
So this last fall, in around the end of October, I traveled to the Caucasus and Ukraine. So it was Azerbaijan, Georgia, Armenia, and the Ukraine. which clearly are places that you wouldn't think that aren't, again, this is one of those examples of diversity, not volume. So this is in Georgia, and Georgia is, I would actually really, there's two places from my trip that I would totally promote if people are looking for out of the average places to go, and Tbilisi, Georgia would definitely be one of them. Georgia is highly Christian place. Like 83% of the population would identify as a practicing Christian, and it has been a Christian nation since, or region, nation, country since about the 4th century. And it is Georgian or Orthodox, and you still, you just feel like you've stepped back in time a little bit. So this is, I believe, or that's at least the site and very ancient of the oldest Christian church in Georgia. In Tbilisi, these are mounds of, there's some warm baths there. You can't see the canopy very well, but that leads into hot water springs, warm baths that Marco Polo even came to. I mean, just the location, the ancient nature of the region. At the same time, one thing that struck me on this whole trip is also how recent many of the conflicts are. So I think it was 2008 or so was the last conflict between Georgia and Russia. So there was a war in that area. So this bridge was built just in 2009. It's called the Peace Bridge. So the ancient things that you get to see, but also it's so striking, the modernity of the area, and to know how recent many of these conflicts are. So this is in Armenia, and this you can see there's over 1,000 steps kind of along the right that you can walk up through to the very top. And this was designed in the Soviet era, and it kind of looks that way, but it wasn't built until the I'm not actually, now I can't remember when it was built, but it was built by an expat, somebody who lives in the United States, and it's all art. So on the inside, you can go up escalators, and there's art on each that follow the escalators up, and then at each level, there's sculpture. So I only put one picture in, but some of it's really quite beautiful. You still, in this part of the world, their roads in every country we're in were far better than our roads. I think they're probably just newer, right? But, very smooth, very modern. So much of, you didn't really feel like you were in a developing country, but then there would be always little things that are just so different. I mean, you still go on the tarmac and wait in line to go up on the plane. I can't remember how many years it's been since that's the way I boarded a plane someplace else. One fun thing, when I was in Lviv, Ukraine, at each of the places we would go to fairs to recruit students, and we would see somewhere between 300 and 800 students at each of the fairs. And here, the student had spent a year in Sioux Falls, so she was appointed my table host for that day. Which was just a lot of fun. She was so excited to have the opportunity to see somebody again from South Dakota, and we had just a lovely time. Then this is Kiev, the last stop in the Ukraine, and I don't know, this is again a recent conflict. 2014 there was in the city of Kiev, on Maidan, the square, there was a revolution, and there's a great documentary, if anybody's interested in it, called Winter on Fire. And these are just, in case anybody's aware, these are the images that we would have seen in the news and that are predominant in that documentary. So this is the Orthodox church that served as the hospital, basically, for the people. And this is the square, and you watch this video, and it was piled high with walls of tires and that were lit on fire perpetually to keep that's where the revolutionaries were stationed, and to keep the police and the other forces to allow them to continue the revolution, which they effectively won, but it hasn't really obviously allowed them the success that they were hoping for. So that's been my trip. I'm going to Argentina in a couple weeks to help get some more students for our intensive English program.
This is a picture from the Monkey Temple in Kathmandu, Nepal. It was a pretty busy time when I was there. I didn't really know what to expect, but this was one of the few kind of days off that we had, and this was a place that was recommended to me. So you can't really see it so much in this photograph. Perhaps I had another one that was from a different angle that really showed the number of monkeys that was on this temple. I don't know how many of you guys have had close up in-person experiences with little tiny monkeys that like to play around and jump and wrestle and all that kind of stuff, but seriously, you could sit here for hours and watch them. It was kind of at the top of a hill looking out over Kathmandu. This is gonna be like roulette kind of, okay. All right, so yeah, this is not the top of the hill. Yeah, this was a stupa that's there. Behind it, there was one of the tours that they took us on as part of the EdUSA fair, that we got to go kind of see some cultural things. So this was included as part of the tour. So down there, there were some little shops and vendors, mostly artisans. But after walking around the stupa and kind of going into a temple that was on the other side, we hiked up onto a patio and enjoyed the view a little bit. This is the view from the top of the hill by the Monkey Temple. So you can kind of see the expanse of Kathmandu sort of, surrounded by the mountains. It was a very impressive type of environment, I would say. I had the chance to live in the Andean region of South America for a while, so that kind of was a similar type of feel, I guess. This is from outside that stupa. So you can go around, and these are the prayer wheels. So you go around the building and you touch all of the wheels and you make a wish for something that you want, and then buy a small souvenir and bring it back for your friend so he can wish forever. And then this is a view from my hotel room, one of my jet-lagged mornings of waking up, this isn't usually my time of day, but waking up to see the sunrise over Kathmandu. Then I had a very brief trip to India. I was in Chennai, so the south of India. I was only there for about 3 days. So a little bit of time to kind of poke around a bit. So we got to see some temples, hired a little tuk-tuk driver for the day, and went exploring. And the third stop on my tour this fall was in Sri Lanka. So one of the things that they like to promote is there's this Buddhist temple that has on display Buddha's hair. So it's actually, I don't know that I could say it wasn't really obviously a piece of hair, but they had some sort of something that had a little pillow that had it on display. But it was one of the big things that everybody in Colombo wanted you to go to this place and see the Buddha hair. So I'll go back. My history a little bit is that I taught English abroad for about 5 years before coming back, like right after college, before coming back to the US. And one of the places that I lived was in Vietnam. And as part of our recruitment opportunities, in February of this year, I had the opportunity to go back to Vietnam, which was awesome. And I had, before going to Vietnam the first time, absolutely no expectations. I did not speak the language. I didn't know anything about it. I liked Vietnamese food and coffee, so I thought that was a good step. But, really no expectations. And within days of being there, the people just really, really warmed my heart. One time in particular, shortly after I moved into my apartment, I usually, when I go places, like to find a shop that I like to buy my stuff at. And so, like, I have my fruit vendor, and I have, the person that I always buy spring rolls from, and I have the place where it's just a little shop down the street. And so there was a woman she was pretty old, and I went in and I got a can of Orangina. And I'd never tried it before. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. And a couple days later, I went back, and she saw me, and she remembered my face, and she just went and opened the refrigerator and went digging around in there and came up with this. And I wasn't even gonna get one that day, but it was just the fact that she remembered me after such a short period of time. And I think that really is the way my experience was in Vietnam in general. So this is one of my favorite souvenirs of my travels ever. This is not the Orangina lady. This is the spring roll lady. So she had a little stand, like a plastic table, right by my school where I used to teach at. And I looked for her. The hotel that I stayed at this time was probably about 30 to 45-minute walking from where my old neighborhood used to be. And I walked down this alley 3 times, and she wasn't there. And the last time there was a vegetarian restaurant I wanted to go back to. I thought, well, yeah, I don't know, I'll just check, see if she's there. And I saw her. And I just freaked out. I just went running up, and I was like talking. She doesn't speak English. I don't speak Vietnamese. And there was this moment in which I could tell that she remembered me, and that's 9 years later. And so this was a moment in which I got her to take a picture with me, and then she said in English, sit down, gave me my spring rolls, actually cut them up. I've never had anybody do that for me before, but maybe she thought that I had lost my touch. I don't know. Gave me a pair of chopsticks and made me eat them before I left, but it was very, very sweet. And then she gave me a bag of mandarin oranges. So it was one of those moments that just, you feel like the world's beautiful, and ate my oranges while walking, tears going down my face, getting stared at by every Vietnamese person that crossed my path. But it was a wonderful moment for me. Ho Chi Minh City, or Saigon, was where I lived when I was there before. It's changed a lot. This is the view from the tallest tower building that they built actually after I moved. And so we snuck up there to a cafe and try to sneak some pictures before they realized we weren't actually going to buy overpriced smoothies and then sneak our way down. But yeah, it's a really interesting and beautiful place to go. The end of my trip in Vietnam was in Hanoi. I haven't spent very much time there. It's a little bit more confusing, I think, for me in terms of the roads, sort of like spaghetti, but it was beautiful, and I did have the chance to get one of my most memorable dishes. If you ever get the chance to go to Hanoi, Vietnam, please eat the bún chả. It is the best thing you will ever have in your life. I have not been able to find anything like that in the U.S. since moving back. I think it's because it's a northern Vietnamese thing, but keep it in your brains for the next time you're in Vietnam. And then that's it. Patrick.
All right, so I'll try to keep this brief, but so this is a photo of Amsterdam. I was there in November and met with with Education USA, which is an arm of the State Department, and they help promote American education abroad, and visited the International School of Amsterdam. So this is just right outside of my hotel, so it's kind of a nice little view. And this is a photo of Leiden. I was actually transiting to a school, and then I had to go through Leiden, and if any of you remember, Katya Dushenko is our, what's the official title of her scholarship?
Rotary Global Scholar.
Rotary Global Scholar that our club is, she's went to USD, and so I had got in touch with her, and we had coffee right here. So, and she's doing well, and she's looking for jobs in international education, which is kind of cool that she'll be kind of hopefully doing what we do somewhere. This is, and then I went from Amsterdam, I went to Berlin, and right to the left of this photo is the U.S. Embassy, and of course we all know that that's, I'm blanking on the, what is it? Brandenburg, yeah, right. Whatever. And Frieserplatz. So I think that is probably the most expensive piece of real estate maybe the U.S. government owns. I don't know. And so I met with some Education USA officials there. And then I went to Hamburg again to meet with EdUSA officials. And so that's a view there. And then it's one of the largest ports in Europe. And then from Hamburg, I went to Jena, Germany to visit our exchange partner. So at the University of Jena. Or Friedrich Schiller University in Jena. So this is the view off the train station. And then of course I had to get a Thüringer Bratwurst. And this is, you can see it's the Christmas market. So I was in Germany right during the Christmas market. So it's kind of, somebody has to do it. So I guess that was a fringe benefit. And so this was a place that was recommended by our partners there. And it was nice to get that agreement resurrected a little bit. And so it's, hopefully we'll get some students from Jena here, and then our students go there. And then for the week from Jena, I went to Freiburg, Germany, and I participated in a conference or seminar for a week. The state of Baden-Württemberg paid for 15 American higher education or international education folks to come to the German state and learn about their educational system. So we went into a high school for a day, visited universities, a teacher's college, And then Freiburg's in the southwest of Germany, so we went to, and this is Jena again, or not Jena, sorry, Freiburg. So this is in Basel, the University of Basel, and this is the oldest complete Mercator projection map in existence. This is an original Mercator, so we were able to look, and there's photos of like what they thought was going on in the New World. So like, you know, cannibalism and all these things is very fantastical, right? But it was really cool that we were able to see that in the archives of the University of Basel. And then we also went to Strasbourg for the day because these are all about an hour away. And out of the trip, we hope that we're going to have at least one, if not maybe two, new exchange partnerships with universities there, which is also a part of our office. We support the incoming exchange, the CAGE, Center for Academic and Global Engagement, supports the outgoing, and it's really the best and most affordable way for a student to study abroad, so it's a great tool for our university students. And it's great to have students come, obviously for their whole degree, but even if it's for a semester a year, I think they tend to have much more of a, they're here for a semester, so they really want to make the most of it. And we do see, I think we have 2 or 3 students now that came here on an exchange, went back, and then now they're here for a master's or a PhD. So that's really cool. It's a kind of a part of our recruitment tool. So this is in Pokhara, Nepal. I did the same tour that Tina did in February. So she had done it in the fall, I did in the spring. And this is right out of our hotel. And that the, you know, have the Rotary Club there, and at least 2 or 3 people that I met that were Nepali, like headmasters of a school, and the agency that we work with are actually Rotarians, and a couple are going to the conference in Atlanta. So I thought that was kind of neat. And this is the Peace Pagoda. It's up on the top of the hill in Pokhara, and each side has a different Buddha statue from, so this is from Japan, this central Buddha, and then there's a Buddha from Sri Lanka and other areas. Nepal is interesting that it's majority Hindu, but it has, the Buddha was actually born in Nepal, so there's still a large Buddhist population. That's the view of Pokhara, this sort of the second city of Nepal, where we did recruitment fairs and high school visits. And this was some of the people that did this pre-tour to Pokhara at the little airport there. And this is in Kathmandu in the Durbar Square. So each of the 4 cities of the Central Valley and Kathmandu had these beautiful pagodas and statuaries and things like that. These were palaces. And of course, we all remember the big earthquake that happened in Nepal like 2 to 3 years ago. So on the left, or we see the right, is the photo of what used to be there. And then if we look, there's nothing. It just completely and utterly collapsed. And so it's some of these squares, like these, you know, 1,000 years of history are just gone. And Nepal's an incredibly poor country, so it's taking a lot to rebuild it. But, and this is also a view of Durbar Square and one of the Hindu deities that can't really see, but in the central, he's kind of a wild-looking character. And then so after Nepal, I went to India for 3 days to Ahmedabad and Gujarat. Good businessmen there is what everyone kept saying. So, but this is the traditional, I think it's the thali food, so that was really nice. And then one of the oldest mosques in Ahmedabad from when they had Muslim rulers in that part of India. And then from there, pretty much anything to South Asia these days, you transit through the Gulf. And so I went to, we decided to add on a few days to visit some schools and consultancies in Abu Dhabi. So this is the mosque, Sheikh Zayed Grand Mosque, right? And I think it was $1.8 billion to construct. So I guess when you, you know, run your own kingdom and you have hundreds of billions of dollars worth of oil revenue each year, you can spend a couple billion on a mosque. So it's amazing, very beautiful. And this is, last but not least, went to Dubai. And so this is a view of a restaurant there of Dubai, and in the middle is the Burj Khalifa, which is, I think it's still the tallest building in the world. So the Chinese, I think, are building a couple that'll be close. But I'm sure they'll build another one then to get the tallest one. So I think that's all the photos that we have. Michelle, I think we're out of time, but I'm sure we'll stay around afterwards if you have any questions for us. So we have. Thank you.